Hey, Joe.
Hi, Amy.
Ooh, this is episode 1.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're here. I cannot believe we're here. We actually just finished recording episode 1. So on today's episode, we have Michelle Fredericks. She's come to join us and have a chat with us.
Yeah, she's awesome.
So good.
I know that her story is just going to really encourage people, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
She's so real. Her family is so fun.
so
and
fun. She's the coolest nana I've ever met.
Yes, she really is.
I'm 28 and I feel like she's cooler than me.
That's
right. I feel intimidated by her coolness. So I want to be like her when I grow up.
She is pretty cool, and she's cool, and she's also been through some stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think people are going to really learn something from her story.
Yeah, totally. So this season is called On the Other Side. So just to give you a little tidbit on what to expect, she was a very young mum.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about, being on the other side of an unexpected pregnancy. And even though that's not something that I experienced myself, I definitely still learnt a lot on how I can approach other people that are going through that. I got a lot out of that.
Me too. All right, let's listen.
Cool. Let's go.
Okay, well, welcome, Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us on the Strong Families podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is so cool. Appreciate it.
You were our first guest. We are very excited to interview you.
Well, I'm honoured.
Hear a bit of your story. We know that, you can talk. You're articulate.
Oh, yes. You'll have to stop me. So,
and you've got a fascinating story. So
it's true.
Yeah.
I hope anyway. I hope it's helpful.
Yeah. Well, we always like to start our podcast just by asking our guests, what's their family picture? Paint us a picture of your family, a family portrait with your words of who your family is, what they're like, what your life is like right now.
Okay, so my family, it even has a really cool bright coloured frame in this picture.
Oh, good.
So we're eclectic.
Yeah.
If you can imagine every different type of personality in the world, they're all in our family.
Okay.
So from my husband, so I've been married to my high school sweetheart for 32 years this year, and have 3 adult children, Jessica, Joshua and Megan, so 31, 29 and 27. And I was only 19 when I fell pregnant, so we'll probably get to that at some point.
For sure.
So we're all really close and tight. And so Jessica is married to Raymond, and they have 2 children.
Yeah.
So they have a Matthew and a Sailor. So, and they live just 10 minutes down the road from us, so I get to see them quite a bit. And then we have Joshua, who is going to get engaged soon. I can't give it away. I can't give it away.
Who's going to listen to this?
But he's going to get engaged probably by the end of the year to his beautiful girl, Tamika.
Amazing.
So they've been together for about 5 or 6 years now.
Oh, good.
And then we have Megan, who is married to Matthew, and they have Harmony and Olivia. And so we've got 4 grandkids.
Wow.
And life is crazy. So we have 3 Matthews. We have Big Matthew, which is my husband. We have Middle Matthew, who's my son-in-law. And then we have grandson Matthew, who's little Matthew. So if we're all somewhere for Christmas and we say Matthew, they all pop their heads up and they're like, yes. I was like, oh, hang on a minute. Which Matt am I wanting?
And poor little Matthew will be little Matthew even when he's
21.
6 foot and 21. He'll be little Matthew for his whole life.
Exactly. So eclectic, all different personalities, as I've said.
Yeah.
Some of them have on-off switches and nothing in between. So if they're awake, wow, life is full. And then they sleep, and then some are a little slower than that. So, but at the end of the day, my hubby, who I adore, 32 years of marriage, we still actually really like each other.
How good.
That's
So
an achievement.
good.
That is an
That's an
achievement. We like each other.
We're going to learn from you. We're not that far into marriage, both Amy and I.
Tips.
Yeah. Actually, let's start us off. Off with some marriage tips.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, marriage tips.
Yeah. How do you still like each other after that long?
So, well, when we first got married, my grandmother came over to me and she said, Michelle, people say marriage is like you've got to give 50-50. She said, it's rubbish. She said, you got to give 100 and he's got to give 100. And that always stuck with me. And that obviously looks different all the time. But I got to forgive 100% of the times. I got to be generous 100% of the times. I've got to be considerate 100% of the times. So a tip is that Don't think, oh, look, I'll come halfway and you come the other half and we'll meet in the middle.
Like
you
keeping score.
you can't do
doesn't
that.
work.
You can't
Yeah.
do that. So,
Yeah.
but then some days, you know, Matt will come further than I can come because I'm emotionally whatever. But that was something that we had to learn to do. That didn't happen. I would be like, nah, I'm stopping here, mate, if you don't come over here. So we learnt that over the years. So that would be one big thing is dying to self.
Yeah.
Totally.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah,
I hate
no
that.
one loves that, hey?
Nah,
No.
dying to self. And what's another thing? Even when the kids were little, just trying to still do stuff together.
Yeah.
So not getting so, you know, intoxicated by family life that we forgot about, you know, each other.
100%.
So trying hard to have time together and just, we didn't do it very well when they were little. But as they started to get a little bit older, we got more deliberate about making sure we had time together and looking at each other's eyes and going, are you okay? Are you okay? Are we surviving this crazy life? But it's hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any, and we laugh a lot.
So good.
Not at each other, but with each other.
Yes,
No,
so
actually,
good.
we laugh
Yeah,
at
I think
each other.
Sometimes at each other.
Sometimes at each other, for sure.
I was going to say, I hope we can sometimes laugh at each
No,
other.
yeah, I do laugh at him. He thinks he's funny. I think I'm funny, and so
Yeah.
there's a lot of laughing at each other.
That sounds awesome.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Well, you mentioned before that you had Jess, your oldest, quite young.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Matt and I were dating since we were 15,
Wow.
high school sweethearts.
Yeah.
And then at the ripe old age of 18, I found myself pregnant.
Wow.
Just whoops.
Oopsie
How did that happen?
So a little bit unplanned.
Yes, very, very unplanned.
Yeah.
And so we decided to get married. So I was 19, so I fell pregnant at 18, got married about 11 or 12 weeks later.
Wow.
So I just
Wow.
turned 19.
Wow.
And so we started the crazy journey of teenage parenting, really,
Yeah.
because we were still 19 when we
Yeah.
had Jess. And so that has been quite the journey. And some great advice in the midst of that, though, because we were in church, but clearly still working out our salvation.
Totally.
And trying to get it all right.
Yeah.
But my pastor at the time, he just said, let's never make this a secret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, let's bring it into the light.
Great.
And then you don't have to dodge and weave awkward conversations for the rest of
Yeah.
your life. Just
So good.
have some awkward conversations right up. So, of course, you know, we're getting married really quickly and people are like, oh, you're getting married. And I would just come straight out with, yep, I'm pregnant.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
As soon as Jess was born, she knew that she was at our wedding.
Yeah.
So we just didn't cover anything.
Yeah.
We brought it into the light. And that has been such great advice because there's never been any like secrets.
Yeah.
Because when things are hidden, it gets messy and muddy,
Totally.
and then you end up in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Wow.
so
Great.
19,
Wow.
and then we kind of had to.
Just continue
You
on
were
with
going to
that.
ask a question. What were you going to ask?
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, how was the reception to it? So you were able
Yeah.
to kind of own it and be honest and open.
Yeah.
Did you find there was a big stigma? It was difficult for people to accept?
Oh, look, I'm sure people were talking about us behind our back.
Yeah.
But as my senior pastor said, they'll talk about you until the next thing to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
The latest hot
and
goss.
so, I don't know, some people, maybe, I didn't hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
I didn't hear it.
That's
And
good.
we were in a church family where we were just kind of like, you know, just everyone was really supportive, I suppose. And so, and back in Townsville, kind of a country town, so
Yep.
people rallied around us, and
Awesome.
Great.
I don't know.
That's so
Yeah.
good.
I didn't hear anything.
That's
Great.
awesome.
Oh, that's
So
great.
Best case
that's
scenario.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then I remember Jess was probably about 2.5. And she asked me something, and I said, "You were in Mummy's tummy at the wedding." And she was
Yeah.
like, "Oh." So we used to point to my
Yeah.
tummy when so she kind of grew up
Yeah.
knowing that she was at the wedding, and she's never
Yeah.
had this kind of like, "Oh, I was the mistake," or like we
Yeah.
never talked about it like that. So we
Great.
just
Yeah.
owned it,
Good.
and thankfully the goodness and the grace of God
Yeah.
carried us and covered us. But
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
No.
So I say that, and it wasn't easy.
Had you always wanted to be a mum? Was it in the plan eventually?
Yeah.
Or
So Matt and I had been together since we were 15, and so we'd literally, like, we'd started to sleep together.
Yeah.
And we're like, this is not the right thing to be doing. So we'd actually gone to our pastor and said, hey, look, we're not living right. We want to get our life kind of back in a healthier place.
Sure.
So can you help us? And he's like, yeah, no worries at all. Well, the next visit, which was like a week or 2 weeks later, I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant.
Oh, no.
And here's another thing that I have learned
Yeah.
and I have taken with me. The first thing he said was, oh my gosh, congratulations.
Oh,
and
so
he
good.
hugged us.
Yeah.
Right? He
So
hugged
good.
us. And I'm like, what do you mean, congratulations? I've ruined my life.
Yeah.
He goes, no, you're just doing things a little different to how you thought.
yeah.
So let's make this work.
Yeah.
And I've been a church pastor for 20-something years, and I've had those conversations with girls in my
Yeah.
office. And my response has always been, oh my gosh, congratulations. You've got a
Yeah.
baby on the way. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like,
A life is precious.
It's a life is
Yeah.
precious. God is
Yeah.
all over this. This
Yeah.
might not be the way that you first thought, but we
Yeah.
serve a redemptive God. We serve a God of grace.
Yeah.
We can work this thing through.
Totally.
And so I learned a big lesson
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And she's always grown up with, and she's never had, well, not that I know of, I probably should re-ask her. I'm like, are you okay? You're 31. Have you ever felt like
Yeah.
you weren't wanted? But I don't think so. She's quite
Yeah.
you girls know Jess.
We
Yeah,
know
we
her.
do.
She's very secure.
Very
lovely.
secure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
pretty like, I think, well, none of us are normal, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She's
so-
very secure. So if that was the reception from your pastor, how did it go telling Matt? How did you feel in that moment, having to tell him, babe?
Okay,
Like-
so we both went to the doctors.
okay, great.
And I went down, I did the pregnancy test.
Uh-huh.
And I still to this day remember walking out of the doctor's room and down this hallway, and I saw Matt sitting there, and I just literally walked straight past him and out the door. And he
Not ready
he
to
ran
talk.
out the door. He goes, "What's wrong?" Anyway, and I did not say a word to him until we sat in the car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know if I use his words exactly, but I was
Yeah.
just like, "Holy crap, I'm pregnant."
Yeah.
And he's like, holy crap. And so
Yeah.
we both smoked at the time, and he pulled out a cigarette. I'm like, don't you smoke around me?
Things got to change around here.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he's like, well, we need to get married. That was his first
Oh,
response.
wow.
Okay.
We need to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He never, ever once indicated that he was bailing. So
Great.
Wow.
Great.
that was when we went back to our pastor, and we're like, ooh. My mum, on the other hand, I think when I can't remember exactly when I told her, but
Yeah.
she was a single mum. So she was devastated for me.
Yeah, okay.
And she didn't like Matt. She
Oh.
loves him now.
Oh,
Like, they
right.
will laugh about it now.
Yeah.
But, she didn't like him. And she
Yeah.
actually, at some point when I was around 16, she told him, I banish you from our house. You're never to see my daughter again. And of course, you say that to my husband. He's just like, well, I'll prove you wrong. Which he did.
He did.
On the full extreme
Yes.
level.
Pregnant, married,
Pregnant,
done.
stuck with me.
32 years later.
Yeah, but
Is it?
now they are the best of friends.
That's
and
so nice.
Yeah, my mum's in aged care now, and so he goes and picks her up for church and just loves on her.
Bless.
And so
Yeah.
Wow.
they worked it out. And then my dad, he came, like, the first time he met Matt was at the wedding.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
Wow. So Matt had to pick him up from the airport.
Oh, great.
That would have been an interesting.
So, and now
Interesting
they
guys.
are really good friends.
Oh, good.
They
Yeah.
are super friends.
Good.
Yeah.
So my dad
Yeah.
lives on the sunny coast. My mum's down here.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow. Wild.
Well, this season, I guess, of our podcast, we're calling it On the Other Side. And it's all about people being on the other side of something. So obviously we've talked about being on the other side of unplanned pregnancy.
Yeah.
But one of the other things you're on the other side of is having little kids in your home. They've
Praise the
grown
Lord for
up.
that.
They're out.
We're still in that.
Yeah. So we need some encouragement,
Okay.
basically. That your kids have grown up, and we, like we said, we know Jess. She's
Yeah.
awesome, and we really admire the relationship that you have with her. That you're very close, you're very open with one another, and so. Being on the other side of having the kids in your home, I guess, can you reflect back to what it was like those years, some things that you learnt, some things that were hard, some things that you miss that you wish you could go back to. What is it like now being on the other side of it?
Actually called the kids the other day. Oh, no, I didn't call them, sorry. I have a little chat with all three of them. And I'm like, hey, I'm doing this podcast. I won't tell them anything that would embarrass you too much.
Oh, come on, you can. A little bit.
But, you know, can you think back? Because, you know, like Jess is now 31.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, when we lived in that house in Mount Louisa, where did you all sleep? Like, sometimes I just can't remember, like, some of those kind of things. But a couple of things that I think we made sure we did was, to the best of our ability, tried to sit around the dining room table and have a meal together.
Yeah.
When they were little, we did that all the time.
Yeah, great.
That's what we did. We would always sit around the, you know, and Jess was reminding me in this text message that Josh used to eat his Weet-Bix with a metal spoon and put it in his mouth, but then flip his spoon over and crunch it on his. So Jess cannot stand the clunking of teeth, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, some of us have actually got a bit of an issue with like. Anyway, and they were laughing about it. But that's because we forced them all. And she's like, Dad would never let me leave the table. You're not leaving the table until everyone's finished their meal. And so we laugh about it now, but we tried to have just time around the table and, hey, talk about, you know, your day or what are you up to today. And so it didn't happen every single day.
Yeah.
But I reckon 3 to 5 times a week we sat around the table.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a challenge, but I'm really glad we did it because it's those memories now that the kids have of, you know, Megan chewing too loud or Josh, you know, poor Josh. We were chatting in this chat. He's just like, why is everyone attacking me? Why was it me that I'm like, because you were the provoker in the family. You're right, you have provokers in your family, and you've got a second one on the way. You'll work out which one's going to provoke.
Fun, can't wait.
You can't be Archer, surely.
No, surely
He's
not.
too sweet.
Oh, I don't know.
Joe, do you have a provoker in your family?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay, we won't name them.
We have allowed one. Yes.
You've allowed it.
Yeah. No. We have a loud one who tends to be the annoyer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, as they get older, that'll get worse.
Oh, good. Good to know. You're meant to be giving me some encouragement here.
So I think be encouraged. Like, it's tough to get them around the dining room table.
Yeah. But those family moments.
Those family moments.
And they sound like they're just day-to-day moments rather than the kids telling you about like big holidays and things. They actually are telling you about the day-to-day things that they remember.
Well, we didn't have the money to really do amazing holidays.
Yeah.
The best holidays that we ever had was actually, because Matt and I both worked for the school that was attached to the church. And so we'd go to Pelorus Island once a year for about 5 or 6 years. And so that was kind of our big holiday. But we didn't really do many holidays because we just didn't have the finances to do it. It's all in those little moments. And we used to always put the kids to bed.
Yeah, right.
And I know you just want to put your feet up at the end of the night and just go to bed. But the importance of actually spending some time putting your kids to bed. Yeah. And sometimes that would be the best conversations Josh and I would have. When it was just him and I on the bed. Sometimes he would say nothing, but sometimes he would pour his heart out. So creating that space for them to be able to just talk to one-on-one. Matt would do it some nights, I would do it some nights, but we worked really hard. We'd never let any of our kids ever just go to bed, and especially as they got older, you know, as they start to get into teenage life. It's like, don't you ever just leave the lounge room and go to bed without actually saying goodnight to me, because then I know you've gone to bed and I can come in.
And acknowledge each other.
Yeah, because I've been in families where they just get up and go and they're in bed and then you don't see them again, and it just really upset me because I just want to know when you're going to bed so that I can, you know, come in and annoy you.
Get my cuddles in.
So I think those little small moments are super important, and I know you're exhausted and I know you just want to just go to bed, like no story tonight, but like I think those moments are the things that create the foundation. So, I mean, we have a great relationship with all 3 of our kids now. And one thing Josh did say to me, he said it to me a little while ago, was just the fact that we always could talk and be honest with you and you wouldn't lose your mind.
Yeah.
Most of the time. Sometimes I'll be like, ah!
Yeah.
But just always, you can always come and talk to me and I'll try my best not to react. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, I
No,
think
totally,
so.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think, even just the other day, you're walking around FaceTiming Megan, like you're talking all the time, like all the time. And I feel like that comes down to you've always had this dialogue, and it's always been a safe place to have that dialogue. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, Josh kind of went through some really rough patches. And here's another thing, just consistency with the way you deal with things as well.
Yeah.
Like he said to me, thank you for being consistent with discipline. There was one way that we disciplined and it always happened that way. And so he's now 29 and he thanked me via text to his sisters the other day. Thank you for being consistent, because I needed the consistency of discipline. I needed the consistency of my boundaries, because he was outside of the box. Well, there wasn't a box. He was just like, whoa, and so, and now he's 29 and he's like, Mom, you can see these 20-year-olds who have just not had any boundaries put in their life and consistency. And so I know you're exhausted, but let me encourage you girls, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's the small, tiny little moments, the discipline, the boundaries, the consistency that establishes those foundations for as they get older. But I know it's exhausting.
Could you see it in the moment, when you were going through stuff with him? Could you see, okay, when he's 29, 30,
No.
he's going to come back, he's going to recognise this.
He's gonna thank us.
Like, he's going to thank me for this
No.
Sunday.
I mean, other people have told me that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm giving you girls anything that wasn't given to me.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was just like, okay, they're telling me this. They've got rungs on the board. So let's try this.
Yeah.
But I didn't at the time. I
wow.
didn't see that all these things actually were going to help at the end of the day. But I trusted the advice of people who had gone before me. And I think that's super important, that you trust people's, advice.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, I rang him. So, of course, we were chatting and we were talking about a few different funny stories, because you girls have said you got any funny stories. And so I was like, hey, go ahead and bring it
we
on.
need that too.
Yeah. So
put that on the table for next.
So I was asking the kids about it.
Yeah.
And so I rang him. I'm like, are you serious about the whole consistency with discipline? He's like, absolutely,
So
Mum.
good.
Like legit. I'm so grateful for it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. And I'm
Wow.
like, and Josh there for maybe when he turned about 14, he kind of went in the total opposite direction to what we'd hoped he would go.
Yeah.
So he kept us on our knees before God for a good 10 years.
Great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
whereas
it's not just this short little
no, it was
phase.
it was
a
10
long
years
season.
of
Wow.
praying and trusting and
Yeah.
just trying to help him bit by bit by bit by bit. And so now he's 29, and I'm like, oh,
Thank you, Lord.
Jesus. And I know that was mostly God and not us.
Yeah.
But
But the wisdom of being consistent was you having to
Yeah.
live it out.
totally.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, in your consistency as well, people see it. So then you're helping people who are maybe going through the similar thing, and you can then be a support to somebody else.
Yeah.
But like, I've got family who don't necessarily believe, the God thing, they would say, or, aren't in church, but have recognized that there is something about the way you do things that's really unique to the way I see the world doing things.
Yeah.
And so in that consistency, which is just normal, which you're doing in the strength of Jesus, you're also being a light for Jesus as well.
Yeah,
So
totally.
it's not just about your family, it's about others way beyond.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So
The ripple effects.
the ripple
Absolutely.
effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, little people and enjoy the moment. Like, I have some regrets.
Yeah.
I regret getting probably too focused on my job.
Yeah.
So there's a balance there that I don't think I got right. So when the kids kind of turned like probably when Megan was about 11 or 12, I started to take on more work. And so would have become probably nearly full-time, I reckon. And I actually, and my job at the time was outside of just normal hours. So I wasn't there at nights a lot, and I was at, you know, extracurricular things. And so I wasn't home of an afternoon when they were teenagers, and I actually regret that. I regret that I wasn't home for them more. So, and I think that probably didn't help Joshy, and I've talked to him about that. That he kind of got a little wayward there, and
if I could have my where you would have been more present if you could.
And I wished I'd said no to that for my sake of my family, but I didn't. I felt the pressure to be at work because that's what you did, right? So
such a tension, isn't it? I think that is a tension that's only getting stronger and stronger for mums. It's like, when are you working? How much are you working? Why aren't you working more? We put it on ourselves, but I also think society asks a lot of questions about work, and it's good to hear from a mum to say, like, you need to be really thoughtful in what you say yes to. Work's not bad, but when you get past the season of having little kids, you don't want to look back and realise that you could have been a bit more present.
You don't want to feel like you've missed it.
No. And I just think for Joshy, he needed probably more presence. And both Matt and I were in a job that required a lot of nights from us. And so I do regret that I just didn't say no to that just for another couple of years, you know. But it's hard because I was a young mum, so I felt like I had a lot of catching up to do in career or like outside of baby land, and then toddler land, and then, you know, so anyway, that's my one regret, that I probably wasn't present enough in that time.
But it's turned out well. Like, we're not going to do things perfectly, and your kids have turned out great.
Yeah, they have.
So you can't beat yourself up about stuff like that.
No, and I don't. I just kind of go, if there was something that I could have done differently, I would have been a little bit more present in the 12 to 15, 16-year-old age.
When maybe you assume they're older and don't need you as much, but they really do.
They actually do. So, that would be my one thing for once you get to that teenage.
Wow.
Okay, tell us a funny story.
I'm
waiting for
Let's
it.
go. Let's laugh.
Tell us a funny moment in the Fredericks household.
In the Fredericks household. So, well, Josh I think he used to purposefully like turn his spoon around so it would go clunk, 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 and that would just drive Jessica mad. And then Matt would refuse to let her leave. So that was always a thing. But we bought a car. So we're a family of 5. We bought our first brand new car. We were so excited. It was a 2-door Yaris.
Perfect.
Right.
The 2 doors.
Smallest fancy. Perfect. Hey, I love a Yaris. They're good cars. I've owned one. But loved
for
it.
a family of 5.
And you're also tall.
Yes, actually, you're a tall family.
We're a tall family. And so...
Imagine packed like sardines.
Like, oh my days.
So we decided to do a trip to Brisbane from Townsville in our 2-door Yaris.
That sounds really comfortable.
Yeah. So the kids would have been maybe 8, 10 and 12.
Wow.
So anyway, and so because there's nowhere to, so I used to put my arm up just like to stretch it. Josh always used to wobble my foot.
No, he didn't.
No.
Oh,
anyway, so I thought that was funny.
That would drive me crazy.
No. Just like bounce it. I'm just but then, so we did talk about this, but he was like 10. And so apparently when you're 10 and you're a boy, you need room for down there. So his legs used to, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And the girls were like, Josh, stop touching me. I can't, I'm a boy. You know, there was this thing for years and years and years. I'm like, Josh, you're a 10-year-old boy. Like, put those knees together. I can't. So there was always this thing. Poor Josh. But Josh I've got photos of him in things. So like in the washing machine, in the toilet.
In the toilet.
In a
Not
toilet.
on,
No,
in.
so one day
Like literally
he was about
sitting
2,
in a toilet.
like standing in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so like in the
Lovely.
toilet, and I could hear splash, 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 and giggle, giggle, giggle. I'm like, what is that? Anyway, I came in, and I couldn't like, and he's oh, that's right, he was flushing it,
Right.
and I couldn't get. I'm like,
a little foot wash.
whatever.
For it.
you know.
Foot spa.
So if he could climb into it,
Yeah.
like he went missing for like half an hour because he was
Stop.
hiding in the washing machine.
Oh no.
So
Wow.
this is why it ends up being poor Josh.
Yeah.
So poor Josh was.
He's just got the best stories. I
He's
can't
got-
imagine Jess doing
He,
stuff.
anything
so
like that,
Megan, so Megan reckons she's like trauma.
Yeah.
Josh chased me around the house with a knife and a lighter, and Josh
Perfect.
is like, that is not true. I think I just like looked at it like
Right.
scared her one day.
But
And
now they
Megan's-
can just make
yeah,
every
Megan's
story
like,
about
yeah.
Josh.
So and then they've told me that we banned them from watching The Simpsons. Anyway, but apparently they've watched every episode because they
Oh,
used to
of
watch it when we went around, or first thing. I don't know what they did, but they're all really, really good friends.
Yeah,
and
that's so good.
they've turned out all right. But I don't think I've got any like funny things except that
that was pretty funny.
That was pretty good. I like that. That was good.
Jess and Matt are very similar in temperament, so they think
Right.
they're funny,
Yes.
but the
Yeah.
rest of us don't.
right.
So they're laughing their heads off at each other
Yeah.
because they're like the funniest things on the
Yeah,
planet,
of course.
and we're like, you're not.
There you go.
So,
So they have some fun
Real
times sometimes.
encouraging. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Great.
and Jessica always prayed that she'd be the shortest in the family because Matt and I are tall.
Yeah.
That she'd be the shortest, and she's the shortest.
Wow.
Is she actually?
She is the shortest.
Oh,
Josh is
wow.
nearly taller than Matt.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I
so
can't imagine
Josh is like.
anyone taller than Matt.
So Josh is really tall.
Yeah.
And then Megan is next, and
Yeah.
then Jess.
Wow.
Really?
She's like, God answered my prayer,
Oh,
Mama. I
to
know
be
he
short.
loves you to be short. I mean, she's not that short. but anyway, so
yeah,
she's the
wow.
shortest.
Interesting.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Is it interesting watching your daughters now be mums themselves? How do you think, I guess, life has changed for parents these days compared to when you had little kids?
Oh, man. The things that you're having to navigate through societally is like
Yep.
wild. I just kind of think, oh man, I'm so glad. I mean, we were dealing with mobile phones and internet, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Terrifying.
We're still dial up.
Actually,
Yeah.
I remember when we first got dial-up
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
could hear it, and I dreamt
Yeah.
that we were raptured that night because Matt had the computer in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Anyway, so you know, I'm watching both my girls who I think are doing a wonderful job
Yeah.
parenting, but they're very different.
Yeah,
So Jess parents very differently to Megan. So Jess has a 7-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl. Megan has a 4-year-old girl and a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
So they're very, very different in their styles, but they're married to very different, you know, men as well
Yeah.
who have got different backgrounds. And
Yeah.
I think as a mum, you have to release your children
Yeah.
to do things differently to how you would do them.
Yep.
It's interesting. I often sit there and I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Good choice.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Be encouraging but not
yeah,
meddling.
well, I don't ever want to meddle.
Yeah.
And so I did get a conversation from Jess the other day. She's like,
Yeah.
Mum, you're spoiling the kids too much. I need you to stop spending so much money. And I'm like, okay.
But how good she can tell you that, because I have
I
a
would-
lot of friends who they don't know how to talk to their parents or their in-laws about, you know, their family dynamic and how, you know, they want
So true.
the grandparents to interact with their kids. That can be a real point of contention
Yeah.
Yeah.
in families, is that, the grandparents are doing things that I'm not comfortable with,
Yep.
but I can't bring it up. I can't talk about it. So
Yeah.
how awesome that she can talk to you and say, hey, this is, you know, this is how
much.
this is how I would
Yeah.
like to do things.
Yeah,
And would
so
you
true.
mind, you know, changing?
I think
That's
that
awesome.
Matt and I have always come in with, okay, we're very aware of how they parent. And so we've lived with Jess and Ray for 18 months.
Yep.
So in that time, we were really clear on, you know, trying to keep our space, their space, so
Yep.
that they could be a family as much as they could.
Yep.
But then also, you have to think about, you know, more than just what you want.
Yeah.
So like, as much as I think that I would have done it like that because this will get that result,
Yeah.
I've given her away to a man on her wedding day who now they've got to create a family, and so it's not my responsibility anymore
Yeah.
to give that advice. And I'll ask lots of questions, or hey, do you mind if I talk to you about this? Can I leave this with you?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Jess and Ray are forming a family, and Matt and Megan are forming a family, and we just pray, and if they ask for our advice, we'll give it. If they don't take it, that's fine, because
It doesn't impact your relationship with
you've
them.
you've got this new family, and you've got to create that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So I've tried my hardest to be a good mother-in-law, and as much as my Raymond pays out on me,
It took
He
40 minutes,
loves
and here we
you.
are.
He loves you, Michelle.
as much as he pays out on me, he does love me. And he even put his arm around me yesterday. He goes, you know I
Wow.
love you. You know I love you. I was like, I know you do. And I know Matt loves me too, you know.
Yeah.
So, but we try hard.
Yeah.
And so I'll just sometimes just drop little,
Yeah.
hey, have you thought about doing this? And they'll be like, oh, maybe not.
Which, because you've got a relationship with them, I'm sure they will listen and go, oh, well,
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
at
they'll
least consider
consider
it.
it.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
necessarily.
Like Megan and
Do
I are
it.
very similar in temperament and personality. So I'll be like, hey, have you thought of that? She's like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, no worries. So we are very, very similar. But that's what I try and do. I try and respect the fact that I think when you give your kids away on their wedding day,
Yeah.
you're actually giving away control
Yeah.
and the rights too.
Yeah.
And so hopefully what you've built up until that point sticks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's awesome. Wow. So healthy. Like, it's so healthy. I love that. Amazing.
So, on the other side,
Yes.
Yes.
on the other side of.
Can I just say I love these cups?
Aren't they awesome?
They're really great. Thank you, Lily.
Strong
for making
Families
them
green.
Strong. Yeah.
I'm drinking
Family's branded.
because you could probably hear in my voice. I've
Yeah.
had a bit of a cold, so I've got my greens and my magnesium. Yep. So let's all have a little drink.
Nice and healthy.
Look at us go.
Cheers.
Try and not slurp and
Cheers.
cheers.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
on the other side of, let's start with unplanned pregnancy.
Yep.
On the other side of that, if you were to give advice to someone who might be facing that right now, or, you know, whether it's their first baby, or even there's a lot of people who might have an unplanned third baby
I did
or
have
fourth
two
baby.
unplanned babies.
They were
Okay.
unplanned.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Joshua was our planned baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
My girls were both unplanned.
Yeah,
Wow. You just
Wow.
needed them. Your family
Yeah,
needed
needed
them, I
them.
think.
Moment of passion got us in trouble.
A common story.
Yeah, it is a common story. Well, that's it. It is so much more
is.
common than you realise, is that,
Yep.
people are, planning for 3
Yeah.
kids, they end up with
Yeah.
a surprise fourth or something like
Yes,
that.
yeah.
I guess, what piece of advice would you give to someone who's facing that or
Yeah.
might face that in the future?
Yeah. I actually got to speak on this at a it was an organisation in Cairns that was literally tailored for women who found themselves in unplanned pregnancies, and I got to speak at an event about this once. And there's 2 kind of ways you come at it. I think when you fall pregnant at 19, you're like, I have just ruined my life. And if someone's listening today, you just need to know you haven't.
Yeah.
It's just going to take a different route than you had thought, but it actually is going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And I was blessed with a guy who stuck around, and I know that a lot of women don't have the same option, having that person stay. But what Jessica has taught me has been so profound and so deep that I just, at the time I was like, oh God, help, please help. But it will be okay, and you can actually do it. And there is so much support. There's organisations now that would rally around you. If people are in a church environment, don't feel like, that you can't come and talk about it. You can. We love you. We will walk you through it. We will do what we can to support you. Here at church, unlimited with our strong families. We've got our see you at playtime. There's just, grow groups. There is help.
Yeah.
And so I think not to panic when it first happened. Like, that's dumb. You will panic. Sorry, that was like,
real.
that's inevitable.
Everyone will panic a little bit.
You will panic.
Even when it's a planned pregnancy, you kind of go, you get that positive test and you think, am I really ready for another child? I'm not sure. Like, it's always, it's a big moment,
massive.
Pregnancy. Yeah.
It is really massive. And so I was given the option to terminate, and that just was never on my radar.
Yeah.
I was like, no, that's not how we roll. Whether Matt stays or not, I am like, no, this is going to happen. And so, and it was tough because, like, 19, all my friends are out living life. And I'm like at home with a baby. But now I'm 50 and I have grandkids and I'm out living my life and everyone's home with teenagers. And I'm like, so it does flip.
Yeah.
It flips. So you will get your time.
Yeah.
So I just want to encourage, maybe a really young mum that you can do it. You actually can do it. And then I think we discovered we're pregnant with Megan when Josh was only, what are they, about 8 months old.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Stressful.
Yeah. There it is.
And Matt was like, yay, we're having another baby. I'm like, oh!
You're still in the throes of like sleep deprivation and
dear.
nappies and
I know.
that's intense.
But again,
Yeah.
once you get over the shock and you're like, okay, one day at a time, one step at a time. And now, so we had 3 under 4 for just a little bit, only for a few months. So it was tight and it was close. But you get used to things and you just take one day at a time. And so I think, just try your hardest not to panic and catastrophize the situation, because I think we can go in catastrophe mode. We'll just take one day at a time and we'll just be present right now and so just want to encourage you'll get through it. You really will. You will, but by the grace of God as well, right? I'm always thankful for the Lord, like, God help me, please. And that would be my prayer. God, I need your help today. Please strengthen me. Please help me. Amen. Because there'd be a kid crying. Gotta go.
That's all I've got
I've
time
read
for.
3 verses of my Bible. I gotta go.
I am hearing you with that.
Yeah,
we don't have time for these long, drawn-out prayers.
No,
That
it's
time
just
will
like,
come again.
that's exactly right. Or in the car. But I used to just ask God's help all the time. Please help. Please help. Help.
SOS little white flag. That's so good. That's such a
so-
good encouragement. Oh, I love that. And now, 31 years later, we look at your life and we go, oh, tell us everything.
Yeah.
So good. So good. I hope I can be a cool nana one day.
Oh, thanks.
One day.
You will.
One day you will be. Totally you will be.
Amazing.
You will be.
So good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Well, yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks
This
for
is
having
amazing.
me.
I feel like I've learnt so much.
I know.
Yeah.
I actually have more questions, but we're out of time.
Yeah.
But
Part
thank
2?
you.
Part
Yeah,
2?
we will get you back for part 2 one day. I'm sure we will,
Yeah.
because I think there's so much more to your story. I know you've been
Totally.
through many different things over the years, and you have a lot to share, a lot of wisdom to share.
Because I've even worked with both of my son-in-laws.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the in-law
Working with
relationship.
family and in-law.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have to talk to you about
Yeah,
that one
okay.
day.
Cool.
'cause-
Let's look at our calendars after this.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, thank you, Michelle.
Well, thank you,
Amazing.
girls.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Cool. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, that's all for this episode of the Strong Families podcast.
We are so glad you joined us for this chat. If you want to continue the conversation, you can find us on Instagram at strongfamilies.au or on Facebook. We would love to hear from you. Now, go enjoy your week, enjoy your family, and we'll join us again next week.
Cool. See you next time, guys.